My name is Lillian Vance. I'm 34 years old, and for the last decade, I haven't been a daughter. I've been a utility bill. I've been a maid. I've been an ATM with a pulse. But 3 weeks ago, standing in the corner of a room filled with expensive perfume and fake laughter, I finally became something else. Let me take you back to that night. The night of my parents' 40th wedding anniversary. The Vance family home in Boston is the kind of place that intimidates mailmen. It's a sprawling brick colonial with manicured hedges that look like they've been cut with nail scissors. To the outside world, it screams old money and success. Inside, the air conditioning was humming, chilling the sweat on the back of my neck as I balanced a silver tray loaded with 50 handmade crab cakes. I had made them. Every single one. Just like I had ordered the flowers, polished the silverware until my fingers cramped, and coordinated the string quartet playing softly in the foyer. Lillian. The champagne tower is looking a little empty, dear. That was my mother, Eleanor. She floated past me in a shimmering gold gown that cost more than my first car. She didn't look at my face, she looked at the tray in my hands, assessing the product, not the person holding it. I'm on it, Mom, I said. Mother, she corrected, flashing a tight smile at a passing guest. And try to look a little more festive. You look like you're at a funeral. I was wearing a plain black dress, comfortable shoes, and no jewelry. I looked like exactly what I was treated like, the hired help. Meanwhile, my younger sister, Bella, the family's golden child, was holding court by the fireplace. She was wearing a red silk dress, laughing loudly with a glass of vintage Pinot Noir in one hand, her husband Greg on her arm. Bella didn't have a job. Bella had projects. Bella had anxiety that prevented her from doing dishes but never prevented her from shopping. I refilled the champagne. I wiped a spill on the Persian rug. I took the coats of late arrivals. By 8 p.m., my feet felt like they were bleeding inside my shoes. I hadn't eaten since breakfast because I was too busy ensuring the caterers, who I was personally supervising because Mom didn't trust them, didn't ruin the filet mignon. The injustice of it didn't burn anymore, it was just a dull ache, a chronic condition I had learned to live with. I was the CFO of a mid-sized logistics company. I managed millions of dollars, negotiated fierce contracts, and led a team of 40 people. But in this house, I was nobody. Then came the speeches. My father, Robert Vance, tapped his spoon against a crystal flute. The room hushed. He stood tall, his hair silver and distinguished, looking every bit the patriarch he pretended to be. 40 years, he boomed, his voice thick with unearned pride. 40 years of building this life. Building this family. He wrapped an arm around my mother. The guests, about 60 of them, mostly neighbors, old business rivals, and people my parents wanted to impress, oohed and awed. And we couldn't have done it without the love and support of our children, Dad said. He gestured broadly toward the fireplace. Bella, our beautiful sunshine. And Greg, our son. He didn't point to the kitchen door where I was standing, holding a trash bag I was about to take out. He didn't mention my name. To celebrate this milestone, Dad continued, his eyes twinkling with a secret, Eleanor and I have a surprise. Next week, we are taking the entire family to Hawaii. The room erupted. Applause. Cheers. Bella actually squealed, a high-pitched sound that grated on my nerves. A week at the Four Seasons in Maui. Dad shouted over the noise. Sun, sand, and celebration. Just us Vances. My heart did a strange little flip. Hawaii. I hadn't taken a vacation in 5 years. I had rolled over my PTO so many times HR had forced me to cash some out. A week of rest. A week away from the spreadsheets and the demands. Maybe this was it. Maybe this was their way of saying thank you. Maybe the reason I had been working so hard on this party was that they wanted me to relax next week. A surge of genuine gratitude rose in my throat. I stepped out of the shadows of the kitchen doorway. I put the trash bag down. I actually smiled, a real smile, imagining the ocean breeze. "That sounds amazing, Dad," I said, my voice cutting through a lull in the applause. I walked toward them, feeling a rare sense of belonging. "I really need to put in my PTO request tonight, if we're leaving next week." "What time is our flight?" The silence that followed wasn't the silence of awe. It was the silence of a car crash. Dad's smile didn't fade, but it froze. It became a mask. He looked at Mom. Mom looked at Bella. Bella covered her mouth to hide a smirk. "Flight," Dad repeated, as if I had asked for a spaceship. "Yes," I said, the cold feeling returning to my stomach. "The flight to Maui. For the family trip." Dad chuckled. It was a dry, condescending sound. He looked around at the guests, inviting them in on the joke. "Oh honey," Mom said, stepping forward and patting my arm with a hand that felt like ice. "There's been a misunderstanding." "What misunderstanding?" I asked. And then, in front of 60 people, neighbors, my old teachers, the mayor's wife, my father delivered the blow. "You don't need to know the flight time, Lillian," he said loudly. "Because you aren't going. You aren't going." The words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. I felt the blood drain from my face. It wasn't just the rejection, it was the public nature of it. It was a performance and I was the prop. "I don't understand," I stammered. I hated how weak my voice sounded. You said the whole family. Well, someone has to stay behind," Mom said, her voice dripping with that fake sweetness she used when she was gaslighting me. She turned to the guests, addressing them as if justifying a necessary sacrifice. "Someone has to watch the house. And the dogs. Lord knows the kennels are just barbaric these days. And the kids," Bella chimed in, stepping forward. Her hand rested on her stomach. She wasn't pregnant, just post-dinner, but she always posed like she was fragile. "We decided it's going to be an adults-only trip. A relaxation trip. Sophie and Liam are staying here." Sophie was 5. Liam was 3. They were Bella's children. "Wait," I said, my mind racing to catch up with their cruelty. "You want me to stay here, in this house, to dog-sit 3 German shepherds and babysit 2 toddlers for a week, while you all go to the Four Seasons?" "It's not just babysitting, Lillian," Dad said, sounding annoyed that I was making a scene. "It's taking care of the estate. The security system needs monitoring. The gardeners are coming on Tuesday. You know how to handle them." "But I have a job," I said. "I have a career. I can't just take a week off to be a nanny." "Oh, please," Bella laughed. It was a sharp, jagged sound. "You sit at a desk and play with numbers. It's not like you're saving lives. Besides, I need this break, Lillian. Do you know how hard it is to be a mother? The stress. The constant demands. You have no idea because you only have to worry about yourself." The guests were watching this like it was a tennis match. I saw Mrs. Gable, the elderly neighbor from next door, bring a napkin to her mouth, shaking her head. She knew. She saw. But no one else said a word. They were too afraid of losing their social standing with the Vances. "I am the CFO of a logistics firm," I said, my voice trembling with suppressed rage. "I worked 60 hours this week. I prepared this entire party. I paid for the catering deposit because Mom forgot her card." "Don't bring money into this," Mom snapped, her eyes narrowing. "That's so vulgar, Lillian. Always counting pennies. We're family. Family helps each other. Family." I looked at them. Really looked at them. "Greg is going. Is Greg family?" Greg, my brother-in-law, looked down at his shoes, swirling his wine. He was a weak man who had married into money, or what he thought was money, and he knew better than to bite the hand that fed him. Greg is Bella's husband, Dad said firmly. He is part of the unit. You're independent, Lillian. You're the strong one. You can handle things here. The strong one. That was their code word. Strong meant exploitable. Strong meant I didn't need love or rest or respect. Strong meant I was a beast of burden, designed to carry their luggage but never allowed to board the plane. I won't do it, I whispered. Excuse me. Dad's face turned a dangerous shade of red. I said I won't do it. I'm not watching the kids. I'm not watching the dogs. I'm not staying behind while you go on a vacation that. I paused, a sudden realization hitting me. Wait. Who is paying for this trip? Dad stepped forward, invading my personal space. He smelled of scotch and arrogance. That is none of your business. This is my anniversary. My money. But was it? I managed their books. I knew their accounts better than they did. I knew Dad's pension was barely covering the mortgage interest. I knew Mom's credit cards were maxed out. It's an anniversary gift to ourselves, Mom announced to the room, clapping her hands to break the tension. Now who wants cake? Lillian, go cut the cake. Go cut the cake. Not, let's discuss this later. Not, I'm sorry you're upset. Just an order. A command to return to my station. I looked at the guests. I saw pity in some eyes, amusement in others. They thought this was normal. They thought this was just how the Vance family worked, the king, the queen, the princess, and the servant. Something inside me cracked. It wasn't a loud crack. It was silent, like a hairline fracture in a dam right before the water burst through. Lillian, Dad hissed, leaning close to my ear so only I could hear. Don't you dare embarrass us. Go into the kitchen, cut the cake, and we will discuss your attitude tomorrow. If you ruin this night, don't expect us to be generous when the inheritance comes. The inheritance. The magic carrot they had dangled in front of me for 10 years. Be a good girl, Lillian. Pay for the roof repair, Lillian. Handle the IRS audit, Lillian. And one day, this will all be yours. I looked at my father. I saw the fear behind his bullying. He was terrified I would walk away, but he was too arrogant to believe I actually would. Fine, I said. I'll cut the cake. I turned on my heel and walked back into the kitchen. The heavy swinging door closed behind me, muting the sound of the applause that started up again. I stood in the center of the industrial-style kitchen, surrounded by dirty dishes I was expected to wash. I looked at the 3-tiered cake I had picked up from the bakery that morning. I didn't cut it. I walked over to the counter where my mother's laptop was sitting. She had been using it to stream the playlist I curated. It was still open. I don't know why I did it. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was divine intervention. But I walked over to that laptop, and I saw an email notification pop up in the corner of the screen. It was from Bella. The subject line read, "The nanny situation." I clicked on it. And what I read changed the trajectory of my entire life. The kitchen was quiet, save for the hum of the refrigerator and the muffled thumping of bass from the living room. My hands were shaking, not from fear, but from a cold, vibrating adrenaline. I opened the email thread. It was a conversation between my mother and Bella, dated 3 days ago. From Bella to Eleanor. Subject, the nanny situation. Mom, are you sure Lillian will agree to stay? If she tries to bail, the whole trip is ruined. We can't afford to bring a nanny to Hawaii, and I am not spending my vacation chasing Sophie around the pool. This is supposed to be my relaxation time. From Eleanor to Bella re, the nanny situation. Don't worry, sweetie. I have it handled. We'll spring it on her at the party in front of everyone. She's too weak to say no in public. She cares too much about what people think. Besides, I told Robert to threaten her with the will if she pushes back. That always shuts her up. I felt a physical blow to my chest. Too weak. Threaten her. They had scripted my humiliation. They had planned it like a military operation. But the next email was the one that turned my sadness into ice. From Bella to Eleanor Re, the nanny situation good. God, it's hilarious that she thinks she's smart. She's literally paying for her own exclusion. Did the transfer go through for the tickets? From Eleanor to Bella Re, the nanny situation yes. I used the emergency house fund account Lillian deposits into. $12,000. Easy peasy. She thinks that money is for the new roof lol. She really is the perfect free help. It's almost sad. Almost. LOL. My mother, a 65-year-old woman, had typed LOL about stealing $12,000 from me. I stopped breathing for a moment. That money. That emergency house fund. I sent them $1,500 a month. I had been doing it for 5 years. They told me the house was crumbling, that they needed money for repairs, for taxes, for Dad's medical bills. I had sacrificed my own savings, my own vacations, to fill that account. And they used it to buy first-class tickets to Hawaii for themselves and my sister. They weren't just mean. They were thieves. They were financial predators. And I was the prey. I stared at the screen. The tears that had been threatening to fall earlier evaporated. My eyes felt dry and hot. My breathing slowed down. A strange clarity washed over me. It was the snap. It's hard to explain if you haven't felt it. It's the moment when the emotional part of your brain disconnects to save you, and the logical, survivalist part takes over. I stopped being Lillian the daughter. I became Lillian the CFO. Lillian the auditor. I reached into my purse and pulled out my phone. I didn't scream. I didn't throw the cake. I calmly took high-resolution photos of the entire email thread. I scrolled back through months of messages. I found emails mocking my appearance. Emails discussing how to get me to pay for Greg's car repairs. Emails where Dad referred to me as the cash cow. I took photos of everything. Then, I went into Mom's browser history. I found the banking tab. It was still logged in. I navigated to the emergency house fund. Balance, $42. I went to the transaction history. Hawaiian Airlines. Four Seasons deposit. Neiman Marcus. BMW lease payments. They had drained everything. I screenshotted it all. I emailed the files to my secure work account and my personal cloud storage. Then I deleted the sent emails from Mom's sent folder so she wouldn't know I had seen them. I stood up. I looked down at my dress, the plain black one they hated. I smoothed it out. The door to the kitchen swung open. It was Greg, my brother-in-law. He looked flushed, a half-empty wine glass in his hand. "Hey, Lil," he slurred. "Where's the cake?" Bella is getting impatient. You know how she gets with her blood sugar. I looked at Greg. I looked at the man whose car lease I had apparently been paying for. "Coming right up, Greg," I said. My voice was steady. It sounded like someone else's voice. "Great. Hey, sorry about the Hawaii thing," he mumbled, reaching for a shrimp puff on a leftover tray. "But you know, it'll be good for you to have some quiet time here. This big house all to yourself." "Yeah," I said, picking up the cake knife. It was heavy, silver, and sharp. "Quiet time. That's exactly what I need." "Cool. Hurry up with the cake." He turned and stumbled back to the party. I looked at the cake. Happy 40th anniversary, it read in elegant scrolling icing. I didn't bring the cake out. Instead, I went to the back pantry. I grabbed a box of heavy-duty trash bags. Then, I walked out the back door of the kitchen, into the cool night air. I bypassed the party entirely. I walked around the side of the house to the driveway where my modest sedan was parked behind Dad's Mercedes and Greg's BMW. I unlocked my car and moved it to the street, facing away from the house. Then I walked back inside, but not to the kitchen. I went up the back servants' stairs, the stairs they always made me use when I was working, and headed straight for the guest room. The room that was technically mine, but was currently filled with boxes of Bella's old clothes she was too lazy to donate. I wasn't going to cut the cake. I wasn't going to watch the dogs. I was going to execute a merger and acquisition of my own life. And the asset I was acquiring was my freedom. The upstairs hallway was quiet, the noise of the party muffled by the thick oak doors and plush carpeting. I moved like a ghost in the house I grew up in. I entered my room. It was a small room at the end of the hall, originally a sewing room. While Bella had the master suite with the balcony on the other side of the house, I had this. The bed was a twin. The closet was half full of Bella's old pageant gowns and winter coats. I grabbed a duffel bag from under the bed. I didn't pack clothes. Clothes were replaceable. I packed the things that mattered. My passport. My birth certificate. My social security card. My external hard drive containing 15 years of family photos, the ones I took, because no one else ever bothered to document anything unless it was a selfie. Then, I went to the small closet safe I had installed 5 years ago. My parents didn't know the combination. They didn't even know it was there, it was hidden behind a row of winter coats. I spun the dial. Left to 14. Right to 28. Left to 05. Click. Inside lay a thick manila envelope. I pulled it out, my fingers brushing the textured paper. This was it. The nuclear option. The document that made their threats about inheritance laughable. It was the deed to the house. And it didn't have Robert or Eleanor Vance's name on it. It had mine. My grandmother, my mother's mother, had been a shrewd woman. She despised my father. She tolerated my mother. But she loved me. When she passed away 10 years ago, everyone thought she left the house to Mom. But the will was sealed and the trust was complex. Grandma had transferred the property to me in a trust, with a clause that my parents could live there as long as they maintained the property and paid the taxes. I had never told them. Grandma made me promise not to until the time was right. She knew. She knew they would guilt me into signing it over. So for 10 years, I let them strut around like they owned the place. I let them threaten to cut me out of a will that contained nothing but debt. I slid the envelope into my bag. Next, I opened my laptop and logged into the utility companies. Electric. Gas. Water. Internet. Cable. Landscaping. Security. Every single account was in my name. I had set them up years ago because Mom couldn't handle the paperwork, and Dad had bad credit from a failed business venture in the 90s. I didn't cancel them. Not yet. That would be too obvious, too immediate. Instead, I scheduled a disconnection for all services. Date, 3 days from now. Exactly when they would be on the plane to Hawaii. I heard footsteps on the stairs. Heavy. Clumsy. Lillian? It was Dad. He sounded drunk. Where the hell is the cake? I froze. I was in the closet. If he found me packing, he would physically stop me. He had done it before, blocked doorways, grabbed my keys, whenever I tried to leave an argument. Lillian, he bellowed. I stayed silent. Useless girl, he muttered. I heard him walk past my door toward the bathroom. The toilet flushed. The faucet didn't run. Typical. I waited until I heard him lumber back down the stairs. I looked around the room. There was a photo on the nightstand of me and Bella when we were kids. I was holding her up on a tire swing. I looked exhausted even then, at age 10. Bella looked radiant. I took the photo out of the frame and tore it in half. I dropped the pieces in the trash can. I zipped up the bag. It was 9:30 p.m. The party was winding down. I could hear cars starting in the driveway. I couldn't leave yet. If I walked out with a bag now, with guests still in the driveway, it would cause a scene, and Dad would drag me back inside to save face. I had to wait. I sat on the floor of the closet in the dark for 4 hours. I listened to the guests leave. I listened to Mom shrieking about how rude I was for disappearing. I listened to Bella complaining that she didn't get a slice of cake for her Instagram story. She probably went to bed crying, Bella laughed. She's such a drama queen. Leave her, Dad grumbled. She'll be up at 6 a.m. to clean this mess. She knows what's good for her. They went to bed around 1 a.m. I waited another 2 hours, just to be safe. At 3 a.m., the house was silent. The silence of a tomb. I crept out of the closet. I put on my sneakers. I carried my bag downstairs, skipping the third step that always creaked. The living room was a disaster zone. Wine glasses everywhere. Napkins on the floor. Plates with half-eaten cake, they had cut it themselves, hacking it into ugly chunks, smeared on the coffee table. They expected me to wake up and clean this. They expected me to scrub the stains, wash the crystal, and write the thank you notes. I walked to the kitchen table. I took a piece of stationery, Mom's expensive personalized stationery, and a pen. I wrote 5 words. I know about the money. I placed the note on top of the coffee maker, the only appliance Mom knew how to use. Then, I walked out the front door. I didn't lock it. I didn't set the alarm. I walked to my car, threw the bag in the passenger seat, and turned the key. The engine purred. It was the most beautiful sound I had ever heard. I backed out of the driveway. I didn't look back at the big brick house. I didn't look at the manicured hedges. I shifted into drive and headed toward Interstate 90. California was 3,000 miles away. My Aunt Sylvia, the only person in the family who had been exiled, the black sheep, lived there. I hit the gas. The speedometer climbed. 40, 50, 60, I was gone. The drive took me for days. I slept in motel parking lots and showered at truck stops. I ate beef jerky and drank bad coffee. And for the first time in my life, I felt clean. Every mile I put between myself and Boston felt like shedding a layer of skin. The phone calls started around 7 a.m. on the first day. First Mom. Then Dad. Then Bella. 15 missed calls. 32 text messages. I didn't answer. I didn't even read the texts. I simply turned the phone off and bought a burner phone at a Walmart in Ohio. I texted my assistant at work from the new number, family emergency. Taking indefinite personal leave. Will email files. My boss, a stern but fair woman named Karen, replied instantly, take the time. You have 6 months of unused leave. We've got this. Karen treated me better in a text message than my parents had in 34 years. I arrived in Santa Barbara, California, on a Tuesday afternoon. The air smelled different here, salty, floral, and free. Aunt Sylvia lived in a small, weathered bungalow covered in bougainvillea vines, perched on a cliff overlooking the Pacific. She had been banished from the family 20 years ago for marrying a jazz musician and refusing to give Dad a loan from her share of Grandpa's estate. I pulled into her gravel driveway. My car was covered in dust. I looked like a wreck. Sylvia was on the porch before I even cut the engine. She was 60, wearing a linen kaftan and chunky turquoise jewelry, her gray hair wild and loose. She didn't look like Mom's sister. She looked alive. I stepped out of the car, my legs shaking from days of driving. "Lillian," she said. She didn't ask why I was there. She didn't ask what happened. She just opened her arms. I fell into them. And finally, for the first time since the party, I cried. I sobbed until my throat burned. I cried for the little girl who tried so hard to be good. I cried for the woman who wasted a decade buying affection that wasn't for sale. "I know," Sylvia whispered, stroking my hair. "I know, baby. You're safe. You're out." She took me inside. Her house was chaotic and colorful, pottery everywhere, paintings on the walls, a cat sleeping on the dining table. It was the opposite of my parents' museum-like prison. Over tea, real tea, loose leaf, not the Lipton bags Mom used, I told her everything. The party. The exclusion. The email. The theft. When I showed her the photos of the emails, Sylvia didn't look surprised. She looked vindicated. "Eleanor was always a viper," Sylvia said, setting her cup down hard. "But stealing from you? That's a new low, even for her." "I have the deed," I said quietly. Sylvia's eyes widened. "Grandma's deed. You kept it." "I have it in my bag. The trust transferred full ownership to me when I turned 30. I never executed the eviction clause because I thought. You thought they would love you for it," Sylvia finished for me. I nodded, looking down at my hands. "I'm so stupid." "No," Sylvia said fiercely. "You are not stupid. You are a child who wanted her parents. That is natural. What they did, preying on that need, that is unnatural." She stood up and went to an old wooden chest in the corner of the living room. She rummaged through it and pulled out a leather-bound book. "I was waiting for you to come here," she said, handing me the book. "Grandma left this for you, too. She gave it to me for safekeeping because she knew if Eleanor found it, she'd burn it." "What is it?" I asked. "It's a ledger," Sylvia said. "And a diary. Your grandmother documented every single penny she gave your parents. Every loan. Every bailout. And she documented why she gave the house to you." I opened the book. The handwriting was spidery but elegant. June 12, 1998, Robert asked for $50,000 for a sure-thing investment. "I know he will lose it. I gave it to him to keep him from selling Eleanor's jewelry. He is a bottomless pit." August 4, 2005, Lillian is the only one with a head for numbers. And a heart for people. I must protect her. If I leave the house to Eleanor, they will squander it and leave Lillian with nothing. The house must go to Lillian. It is her armor. "Her armor," I whispered. Tears pricked my eyes again. Grandma had seen this coming. She had armed me from the grave. "So," Sylvia said, pouring more tea. "What's the plan?" "I don't know," I admitted. "I just wanted to get away." "Getting away is step 1, Sylvia said, a mischievous glint in her eye. "Step 2 is watching them burn." She pointed to my laptop. "Open it. Let's see what's happening in Boston." I hesitated, then opened the laptop. I logged into the security camera system of the Boston house. I had installed the cameras myself, Nest cams at the front door, the kitchen, and the living room, so I could check on the dogs when I was at work. The feed loaded. The kitchen was a wreck. Dishes were piled high in the sink. There was a pizza box open on the counter. And then, into the frame walked my mother. She was wearing a bathrobe at 2 p.m. She was holding a phone to her ear, and her face was twisted in a rictus of pure rage. I turned up the volume on my laptop. "Ungrateful little bitch." Mom shrieked into the phone. "I don't care where she is, Bella. Find her. The internet is out. The TV is out. And the toilets won't flush properly because the septic alarm is beeping." Sylvia leaned in, grinning. "Oh, this is better than Netflix." Watching my family unravel via a grainy 1080p video feed was a surreal experience. It was like watching a reality show where the contestants were incompetent survivalists, and the island was a luxury home in the suburbs. It had been 4 days since I left. The magic of the Vance household had evaporated. You see, my parents didn't understand how their life worked. They thought groceries appeared by magic. They thought the lawn mowed itself. They thought bills were just suggestions. They didn't realize that I was the engine keeping their Titanic afloat. On the screen, Bella walked into the kitchen carrying a screaming toddler. "Mom!" Bella yelled. "Sophie is hungry. There's no milk. Why didn't Lillian go to Whole Foods before she left?" "Stop shouting!" Mom snapped, slamming her phone down. "I'm trying to call the internet provider, but they're asking for a PIN number." "Who has a PIN number for internet?" "It's just internet. It's the last 4 digits of Lillian's social," I said to the screen, taking a sip of Sylvia's iced tea. "Good luck guessing that." "I can't believe she did this," Bella whined, dropping Sophie onto a chair. The kid immediately started sweeping crumbs off the table onto the floor. "She's so selfish. She ruined my vacation. She ruined my reputation," Mom countered. "Mrs. Gable came over this morning asking if Lillian was okay because she saw her car was gone. I had to lie and say Lillian went to a spa retreat." "A spa? Like that girl knows what a facial is." I flinched. Old habits die hard. But Sylvia reached over and squeezed my hand. "Look at them, Lillian. They aren't powerful. They're pathetic." Then, Dad entered the frame. He was wearing his golf clothes, but he looked disheveled. "My card was declined," he announced, throwing his gold card onto the granite island. "What?" Mom asked. "Which card?" "The Amex. At the club. I tried to pay for lunch with the judge, and the waiter told me it was inactive. Do you know how humiliating that is?" I smiled. The Amex was a supplementary card on my account. I had reported it lost/stolen the morning I left Ohio. "Did you call the bank?" Mom asked. I called. They said the primary account holder froze it. "Lillian." Dad slammed his fist on the counter. A dirty plate rattled. "She froze the cards. She's trying to starve us." "She can't do that." Bella screamed. "That's financial abuse." The irony was so thick I could choke on it. Bella, accusing me of financial abuse because I stopped letting them spend my money. "We have to find her," Dad paced the kitchen. "We have to get her back here. The landscapers didn't show up today. The grass is looking shaggy. The neighbors will talk." "I tried calling her work," Mom said. "That rude woman, Karen, said Lillian is on personal leave and refused to tell me where she is. I threatened to sue the company for kidnapping, and she hung up on me." "We need a lawyer," Dad said. "We need to sue Lillian for abandonment. For distress." "With what money, Robert?" Mom asked, her voice rising to a screech. "Lillian took the house fund. We have nothing in the checking account until your pension hits next week, and that's already earmarked for the BMW. We have the house." Dad shouted. "We have millions in equity in this house. I'll take out a home equity line of credit. I'll hire a private investigator. I'll drag her back here by her hair if I have to. I froze. A home equity line of credit, Halleck. If they tried to do that, they would find out. They can't get a Halleck, I told Sylvia. Because they don't own the house. But they don't know that yet, Sylvia said. Or rather, they think they own it because they bullied you for 10 years. Watch. On screen, Dad was already on his phone. Yes, hello. First National Bank. This is Robert Vance. I'd like to speak to a loan officer about leveraging my property. Yes, 14 Oakwood Drive. What do you mean? Dad stopped pacing. He stood very still. Excuse me. There must be a mistake. No, I am the owner. Who? Trust. Lillian Vance. Dad's face went pale. Pale gray like old oatmeal. What? Mom asked, sensing the shift in the atmosphere. Robert, what is it? Dad slowly lowered the phone. He looked at Mom, then at Bella, then directly at the security camera, as if he suddenly realized he was being watched. The bank says. Dad swallowed hard. The bank says we can't take a loan against the house. Why not? Bella asked. Because we don't own it, Dad whispered. Lillian does. The kitchen went silent. It was a beautiful, deafening silence. That lying little snake, Mom hissed. Her voice was low, venomous. She tricked us. She stole our house. She didn't steal it. Dad roared, suddenly throwing a coffee mug across the room. It shattered against the backsplash. Her grandmother gave it to her. That old witch. They plotted this. What do we do? Bella cried. Dad, what do we do? We go to California, Dad said, his eyes manic. California. How do you know she's there? Mom asked. Because the only other person in this family who is as spiteful as Lillian is your sister Sylvia, Dad spat. And I saw a charge on the toll road pass, she headed west. She's with Sylvia. We're going to get our house back, Dad declared. Pack the car. We're driving to California. I looked at Sylvia. She wasn't scared. She was smiling. Let them come, Sylvia said. I've got a few surprises for them too. But I wasn't just waiting for a fight. I had something else to do. I had Mr. Sterling to meet. While my family was piling into the BMW for a hate-fueled road trip across America, I was stepping into a world I never thought I'd belong to. Sylvia had a friend. Mr. Arthur Sterling. He owned the Sterling Gallery in downtown Santa Barbara, a place where people spoke in hushed tones and art sold for the price of a Tesla. I had brought my hard drive. Not just the one with the family photos, but the one with my secret folder. For years, I had been taking photos. Not of sunsets or flowers but of shadows. I took photos of the empty chair at the dinner table where I should have sat. I took photos of my mother's discarded lipstick on a dirty napkin. I took photos of the perfectly manicured lawn with a single, dying dandelion pushing through the cracks. I called the collection The Service. It was stark, black and white and brutal. Sylvia had dragged me to the gallery on Wednesday morning. Mr. Sterling, a tall man with a neatly trimmed beard and glasses that looked like architecture, plugged my drive into his massive monitor. He clicked through the images in silence. 1 minute. 5 minutes. 10 minutes. I held my breath. I felt like a fraud. I was a CFO, not an artist. These were just pictures of my misery. Finally, Mr. Sterling turned around. He took off his glasses. Who are you? He asked. I'm Lillian, I stammered. I'm Sylvia's niece. No, he said intense. I mean, who are you to see the world like this? These aren't just photos, Lillian. This is a documentation of domestic erasure. It's haunting. You like them. Like them. I want to show them, he said decisively. I have a slot opening up this Friday. A pop-up exhibition. I was going to feature a local sculptor, but he flaked. I want the service on my walls. Friday? I gasped. That's in 2 days. Welcome to the art world, darling. It moves fast, Sterling smiled. And I have a client, Mrs. Calloway, who loves exactly this kind of narrative. She's a collector with, let's say, a sharp eye for justice. I agreed. I felt like I was in a dream. Thursday was a blur of printing, framing, and curation. Mr. Sterling's team worked fast. Seeing my photos blown up to 4 by 6 feet was terrifying. My pain was suddenly massive. It was undeniable. But looming over this excitement was the dark cloud moving west. I checked the GPS tracker on the BMW. Yes, I paid for the car, so the tracker app was on my phone. They were making good time. They were in Arizona. They would be here by Friday night. They're coming, I told Sylvia on Thursday night as we sat on her porch. Good, Sylvia said, sipping her wine. The gallery opening is public. Let them come. They'll make a scene, I said, wringing my hands. Dad will shout. Mom will cry. Bella will probably try to tear the photos off the wall. Lillian, Sylvia said, turning to face me. You are not the little girl in the kitchen anymore. You hold the deed. You hold the money. And now, you hold the art. You have the power. Let them make a scene. It will only show the world exactly who they are. She handed me a glass of wine. Besides, I called a friend of mine. Sheriff Miller. He's going to be parked outside the gallery. Just in case. Friday evening arrived. I wore a white suit. Sylvia picked it out. No more black, she had said. You are not the help. You are the star. I looked in the mirror. The woman staring back wasn't the tired, slumped-over Lillian from Boston. She stood tall. Her eyes were bright. She looked dangerous. The gallery was packed. Waiters circulated with champagne. People, rich, important people, were standing in front of my photos, whispering, nodding, looking moved. Mrs. Calloway, an elegant woman in her 70s with silver hair and diamonds that could feed a small country, approached me. My dear, she said, her voice like gravel and honey. That photograph of the uncut cake, it breaks my heart. Is this your story? Yes, I said, my voice steady. It is. It's brave, she said. And it's valuable. I'm interested in buying the collection. The whole collection. The whole thing, she said. For my private museum in Zurich. My heart hammered against my ribs. And then, the glass doors of the gallery burst open. The noise of the street, honking cars, wind, rushed into the quiet, air-conditioned sanctuary. Standing in the doorway was the Vance family. They looked deranged. Dad was wearing rumpled clothes, his face unshaven. Mom's hair was flat, her makeup smeared. Bella was holding a crying Sophie, looking exhausted and furious. Greg trailed behind them, looking like he wanted to be anywhere else. They spotted me instantly. The white suit acted like a beacon. Lillian. Mom shrieked. Her voice echoed off the high ceilings, shattering the sophisticated murmur of the art crowd. Every head turned. Mrs. Calloway raised an eyebrow. Mr. Sterling stepped forward, his face hardening. There she is. Dad yelled, pointing a shaking finger at me. The thief. The ungrateful traitor. My stomach dropped, but then, I remembered the deed in my purse. I remembered the text from my boss. I remembered the look in Mrs. Calloway's eyes. I didn't run. I didn't hide. I took a sip of my champagne, turned to face them, and waited for the war to begin. The silence in the Sterling gallery was absolute. It wasn't the polite silence of appreciation, it was the stunned silence of people witnessing a car crash in a library. My family marched into the room like a barbarian horde. They brought the smell of stale fast food and desperation with them, clashing violently with the gallery's scent of expensive perfume and fresh lilies. "You think you can just run away?" Dad bellowed, storming past a sculpture worth more than his life insurance policy. "You think you can steal my house and hide in this place?" He waved his hand dismissively at the art. He didn't even look at the photos. He didn't realize that the large black and white image looming behind him was a photograph of his own back turned away from me at a Christmas dinner 3 years ago. "Sir," Mr. Sterling stepped forward, blocking Dad's path to me. He was shorter than Dad, but he held himself with the icy authority of a man who dealt with billionaires for a living. "This is a private event. You are trespassing." "Trespassing?" Mom laughed, a shrill, hysterical sound. She pushed past Dad. "I'm her mother. That woman," she pointed a manicured claw at me, "is my daughter. And she has stolen everything from us." The crowd gasped. I saw phones coming out. People were recording. "I haven't stolen anything," I said. My voice was calm. It surprised even me. I projected it, just like I did in board meetings. "I simply stopped letting you steal from me." "Liar!" Bella screamed. She shoved Sophie into Greg's arms and stomped toward me. "You froze the accounts. My baby doesn't have diapers because of you. You selfish, jealous, barren witch." "Bella," I said, "you have a husband. Why doesn't he buy the diapers?" I looked at Greg. Greg shrank into his collar. We all knew Greg was broke. We all knew I had been subsidizing their lifestyle. "This isn't about Greg," Bella yelled. "This is about you abandoning your family. You left us with nothing." "I left you with the consequences of your own actions," I replied. "Lillian!" Dad roared. He tried to shove past Mr. Sterling. "Give me the keys. Give me the passwords. And sign over that deed right now, or I swear to God, I will drag you to court until you are destitute." "Sir, take one more step and I call the police," Mr. Sterling warned. "Call them," Mom challenged. "Please. Call the police. My daughter is a thief. She embezzled money from the family accounts. She tricked her senile grandmother into signing over the house." Mrs. Calloway, who had been watching this unfold with a look of intense distaste, stepped up beside me. "Is this the family depicted in the work?" she asked me, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Yes," I said. "Fascinating," Mrs. Calloway said, looking Mom up and down like she was a piece of bad taxidermy. "The resemblance to the monsters in the photographs is striking. Though the reality is far more tacky." "Who are you?" Mom snapped, turning her glare on the billionaire collector. "Stay out of this, you old hag." The room collectively inhaled. "You do not call Mrs. Eleanor Calloway an old hag." Mrs. Calloway said, her voice dropping to 0 degrees Kelvin, "am the person who just bought your daughter's entire collection. I am the reason your daughter is currently holding a check for $50,000. And I am the person who is about to make sure you never work in this town, or any town, again if you don't lower your voice." 50,000. Dad stopped. His eyes bulged. The number penetrated his rage fog. $50,000. Bella repeated, her anger instantly replaced by greed. She looked at me with new eyes. "Lillian? You made 50 grand?" "I did," I said. "Well," Dad straightened his jacket, trying to regain some dignity. He smoothed his hair. The transition was sickening. He went from abusive tyrant to concerned patriarch in 2 seconds. Well. That's good. That's family money. Lillian, give me the check. We can use it to fix the mess you made with the bank. He actually held out his hand. He expected me to hand it over. Just like I handed over my paycheck when I was 22. Just like I handed over my bonus last year. Give me the check, Lillian, Dad commanded. And we can forget this whole ugly scene. We'll go home. We'll sort out the deed. I'm sure it's just a clerical error. I looked at his hand. Calloused, demanding, empty. I looked at the crowd. They were waiting. I looked at the large projection screen behind me, which was cycling through my photos. Mr. Sterling, I said. Can we pause the slideshow? Certainly, Lillian, he said. I have a different presentation I'd like to show, I said. Since my family is here, and they seem confused about the facts, I think we should clear everything up. Right now. Lillian, don't you dare, Mom warned. She knew. She saw the look in my eye. Connect my laptop, please, I said to the AV technician. Lillian. Dad shouted, lunging forward. Sheriff Miller, who had been standing quietly by the door, stepped in. He put a heavy hand on Dad's chest. Back up, sir. Let the lady speak. I plugged in the HDMI cable. The screen flickered. The black and white photos of my sadness disappeared. In their place, a high-definition image appeared on the massive 10-foot wall. It was the email. The email with the subject line, "The nanny situation." And underneath it, in huge, glowing letters, was the phrase Mom had typed, "She really is the perfect free help." It's almost sad. Almost. Let me tell you a story, I said into the microphone, my voice booming through the gallery. About a family who wanted a vacation, and a daughter who finally decided to give them one. A permanent one. The words on the screen were 10 feet tall. She really is the perfect free help. It's almost sad. Almost. The font was crisp, high definition, and undeniable. It glowed against the white wall of the gallery, illuminating the horrified faces of the 50 guests, and the absolute panic on the faces of my parents. Turn it off. Mom shrieked. She actually lunged toward the projector table, her high heels skidding on the polished concrete floor. Turn it off right now. This is illegal. This is defamation. Mr. Sterling didn't move to stop her. He didn't have to. The shame stopped her. She froze halfway across the room when she realized that every single person, the gallery patrons, the critics, the wealthy collectors, was staring at her with pure, unadulterated disgust. Defamation, I said into the microphone, my voice echoing calmly through the space, requires the statement to be false, Mother. Is that email false? Did you not write it to Bella 3 days before the party? It's out of context. Mom stammered, turning to the crowd, her hands fluttering near her throat. We were joking. It's just family humor. You don't understand our dynamic. Oh, I think we understand the dynamic perfectly, Mrs. Calloway said from the front row. Her voice was dry as a martini. You exploit her. You mock her. And then you steal from her. It's quite Shakespearean, really. In a trashy sort of way. I am not a thief. Dad roared. The veins in his neck were bulging so hard, I thought they might burst. He looked at the screen, then at me. You hacked my wife's computer. That's a federal crime, Lillian. I'll have you arrested. I didn't hack anything, I replied, clicking a button on the remote in my hand. The slide changed. A new image appeared. This one was a spreadsheet. A bank statement from the Emergency House Fund. I simply accessed the account that I have been funding for 5 years, I explained to the room. I pointed to the highlighted rows. Here. June 12th, $12,000 transferred to Hawaiian Airlines. June 14th. $3,000 to Neiman Marcus. June 15th, lease payment for a BMW 5 Series. I looked at Greg. Nice car, by the way, Greg. I hope you enjoyed the heated seats. I paid for them. Greg turned a shade of pale green. He looked at Bella. You told me your dad paid for the lease. Shut up, Greg. Bella hissed, clutching Sophie so tight the poor kid started to whine. And here, I continued, clicking to the next slide. This was a screenshot of a text message from Dad to Mom. Text, don't tell Lillian about the roof repair quote. I'm going to tell her it cost $15,000. We can use the extra $5,000 for the country club dues. She never checks the invoices. The crowd gasped. A low murmur of outrage rippled through the room. She never checks the invoices, I repeated, looking directly at my father. That was your mistake, Dad. I'm a CFO. Checking invoices isn't just my job. It's my life. I checked everything. And do you know what I found? I stepped off the small podium and walked toward them. For 30 years, I had been afraid of my father's temper. I had flinched when he raised his voice. I had made myself small to avoid his shadow. But now, he looked small. He looked like a petty, aging conman caught in a lie he couldn't charm his way out of. I found that over the last 10 years, I said, my voice dropping to a dangerous whisper that the microphone still picked up, I have given you over $200,000. I paid off your credit cards. I paid for the new boiler. I paid for Bella's business startup that failed in 2 months. I paid for it all because I thought you were struggling. I thought you were my parents and you needed help. We are your parents. Mom cried, tears streaming down her face, fake tears, the kind she could summon on command. We raised you. We gave you life. Is this how you repay us? By counting pennies? By humiliating us in front of strangers? I'm not humiliating you, I said. I'm just turning on the lights. If you look ugly in the light, that's not the light's fault. This is ridiculous, Bella shouted, stepping forward. She tried to hand the crying baby to Greg, but Greg stepped back, refusing to take the child. Bella looked shocked, then turned her fury on me. You're just jealous, Lillian. You've always been jealous because Mom and Dad love me more. Because I have a family and you have nothing. You have this stupid art and these fake friends, but you're alone. You'll always be alone. Alone. I looked around the room. I looked at Aunt Sylvia, who was beaming with pride. I looked at Mr. Sterling, who stood like a sentinel. I looked at Mrs. Calloway. I'm not alone, I said. But you? You're about to be very, very lonely. Enough of this. Dad shouted. He reached into his jacket pocket. I don't care about your little slideshow. I don't care about the emails. I want the check from the sale of the art. And I want the keys to my house. We are going home, and you are coming with us to fix the utilities. He took a step toward me, his hand outstretched, aggressive. Sheriff Miller uncrossed his arms. He took one heavy step forward, his hand resting casually on his belt. Sir, the sheriff said. I wouldn't do that. This is a family matter. Dad spat. She has my property. Actually, I said, reaching into my white suit jacket. That brings us to the most important receipt of all. I pulled out the manila envelope. The room went silent again. The air crackled with anticipation. I held the envelope up. It looked innocent enough. Just a bit of paper. But we all know that paper is the heaviest thing in the world. It can crush you. You keep talking about your house, Dad, I said, slowly undoing the string on the envelope. My house. My rules. My roof. It is my house. Dad yelled, though his voice wavered slightly. I've lived there for 40 years. You lived there, I corrected. But you never owned it. Grandma knew. She knew you were bad with money. She knew you would gamble it away, or spend it on cars you couldn't afford. And she knew you would leave Mom destitute if she died first. I pulled out the deed. The official seal stamped at the bottom caught the gallery lights. When Grandma died, I said, unfolding the document, she didn't leave the house to Mom. She created a trust. And when I turned 30, the trust dissolved and transferred the title directly to the beneficiary. I turned the document around so they could see the bold, typed name on the title line. Lillian Vance. It's me, I said. I own the house. I own the land. I own the driveway you parked your car on. I own the pool Bella likes to lounge by. I own it all. Mom made a sound like a dying kettle. Her hand flew to her chest. That can't be right. Mother she wouldn't bypass me. She did, I said. Because she saw how you treated me. She told me to keep it a secret until I needed armor. Well, Mom. I'm wearing the armor now. Dad looked like he had been hit with a shovel. He stared at the paper, his mouth opening and closing. The arrogance was gone, replaced by a terrifying realization of his own vulnerability. But... Dad stammered. But we're family. You wouldn't. The trust had a clause, I continued, my voice hard as diamonds. You were allowed to live there rent-free as long as you paid the property taxes and maintained the home. But you didn't pay the taxes, did you, Dad? I checked the county records. You're 3 years behind. I paid them last week to stop a lien from being placed on the property. So I took a deep breath. This was it. The moment I had dreamed of for 1,000 nights. Since you have violated the terms of the trust, and since you have stolen money from the landlord, that's me, I am exercising my right. I reached into the envelope again and pulled out a separate document. A legal notice I had drafted with a lawyer in Santa Barbara yesterday morning. This is a notice to quit, I said. Otherwise known as an eviction notice. Bella screamed. It was a raw, primal sound of entitlement being murdered. You're evicting us. From our childhood home. From my home, I corrected. You have 30 days. 30 days to pack your things and leave. If you are not out by September 1st, the sheriff in Boston, who has already received a copy of this, will forcibly remove you. 30 days. Mom sobbed, collapsing against a sculpture pedestal. Where will we go? We have no money. You stole the house fund. I recovered the stolen funds, I said. And as for where you go? I hear apartments in the city are affordable if you don't mind a 4th-floor walk-up. Maybe Bella can get a job to help with the rent. I hear Starbucks is hiring. You monster. Mom wailed. And one more thing, I said, looking at Dad. That $50,000 check. The one from Mrs. Calloway. Give it to me, Dad whispered. Please. Lillian. Please. We're drowning. I looked at the check in my hand. It was a life-changing amount of money. It was freedom. It was validation. No, I said. I turned to Mrs. Calloway. Mrs. Calloway, would it be possible to wire these funds directly to a secure account? I don't think it's safe to carry paper checks around people with a history of theft. Mrs. Calloway smiled, a shark-like grin of approval. Consider it done, my dear. My financial manager will handle it in the morning. I looked back at my father. You get nothing. Not the check. Not the house. Not the free labor. And certainly not me. The room erupted. It wasn't polite applause this time. It was a roar of approval. Strangers were clapping. Someone shouted, "Good for you." The energy in the room shifted entirely to my corner. I wasn't the victim anymore. I was the victor. The aftermath of the eviction announcement was swift and brutal. Dad tried to charge at me again. It was a desperate, foolish move. Sheriff Miller didn't even unclasp his hands, he just stepped into Dad's path, his chest acting like a brick wall. "Sir," Sheriff Miller said, his voice dropping an octave. "I strongly suggest you turn around and walk out of here before I arrest you for assault and disturbing the peace. And let me tell you, the jail cells in Santa Barbara aren't nearly as nice as this gallery." Dad stopped. He looked at the sheriff, then at the crowd of wealthy witnesses holding up their phones, recording his downfall. He realized he had lost. The illusion of the respectable Mr. Vance was shattered forever. But the real blow didn't come from the sheriff. It came from the quietest person in the room. Greg. Greg, my brother-in-law, had been standing near the door, holding Bella's purse while she screamed. He had been watching the slideshow. He had heard about the unpaid taxes. He had heard about the eviction. Slowly, Greg walked over to Bella. "Bella," he said. "Not now, Greg." Bella snapped, wiping mascara from her cheeks. "Can't you see I'm being attacked?" "You lied to me," Greg said. He didn't shout. He sounded tired. "You told me the house was in your dad's name. You told me we were waiting on a trust fund that would set us up for life. You told me we didn't need to save money because your parents were loaded. They are loaded," Bella insisted, pointing at Dad. "Daddy, tell him. Tell him it's just a cash flow problem." Dad didn't answer. He was staring at the floor, defeated. "They're broke, Bella," Greg said, shaking his head. "They're broke and they've been living off Lillian. And now Lillian cut the cord." "So what?" Bella grabbed his arm. "We're still a team. We'll figure it out. My parents can come live with us in the condo until the condo." Greg laughed, a dry, humorless sound. "Bella, I missed the mortgage payment last month because you spent $5,000 on consulting fees for your lifestyle blog. I was counting on your dad's investment to cover it. If they move in with us, we'll all be homeless in 3 months." "Greg, don't be dramatic," Bella scoffed. "I'm not being dramatic. I'm being done," Greg said. He dropped Bella's designer purse on the floor. "What are you doing?" Bella shrieked. "I'm leaving," Greg said. "I'm taking the car." "Oh wait, Lillian paid for the car lease, so I guess I'm taking an Uber. I'm going back to Boston. I'm packing my things. And I'm filing for divorce." "You can't," Bella screamed, grabbing his jacket. "We have kids." "Yeah," Greg said, pulling away from her. "And for their sake, I need to get them away from this insanity. I'm going for full custody. No judge will give custody to a woman with no job, no home, and a family history of fraud." Greg turned to me. He looked ashamed. "Lillian. I'm sorry. I should have seen it. I was just. I liked the easy life. I'm sorry." "I know, Greg," I said softly. "Just take care of the kids." "I will." Greg walked out the door. He didn't look back. Bella stood there stunned, watching her meal ticket and her marriage walk out the door in the span of 30 seconds. She turned to Mom, wailing. "Mom. Do something. He's leaving me." But Mom was too busy trying to salvage her own social standing. She had spotted Mrs. Calloway again. "Please," Mom begged, approaching the older woman. "You have to understand. Lillian is mentally unstable. She's manipulated you. If you just give us a chance to explain. Mrs. Calloway didn't even blink. She signaled to a security guard. Get this trash out of my sight, Mrs. Calloway said. They are ruining the aesthetic of the evening. Trash. Mom gasped. Trash, Mrs. Calloway confirmed. You thought you were the elite. My dear, money talks but wealth whispers. You have been screaming your insecurity since you walked in the door. You are not just bankrupt financially, you are bankrupt morally. Goodbye. The security guards moved in. Sheriff Miller took Dad by the arm. The gallery staff gently guided a sobbing Bella and a shocked Mom toward the exit. This isn't over, Lillian. Dad shouted over his shoulder as he was dragged out. You'll regret this. You'll come crawling back. I don't think so, Dad, I said, raising my champagne glass. I think I like the view from here. The doors closed behind them. The noise of their shouting faded into the street. The gallery was quiet for a moment. Then the string quartet began to play again, a cheerful, upbeat waltz. The guests relaxed. The tension broke. Mr. Sterling walked over to me and clinked his glass against mine. Well, he said with a grin. That was the most exciting opening night I've had in 20 years. You're a legend, Lillian. I looked at the photos on the wall. The photos of my pain. They didn't hurt anymore. They felt like history. They felt like a shed skin. I was free. 6 months have passed since that night in the gallery. A lot can happen in 6 months. A life can be dismantled and a new one can be built from the scrap metal. I stayed in California. I never went back to Boston, not even to oversee the eviction. I hired a property management company to handle it. They told me it was ugly. Apparently, Mom tried to chain herself to the staircase, and Bella tried to sue the moving company for scratching her vanity table. But they left. They had to. I sold the house. I didn't want it. It was too full of ghosts. I sold it to a nice young family who promised to rip up the manicured hedges and plant a chaotic vegetable garden. The market was hot, and with the proceeds, plus the money from Mrs. Calloway and the other sales from the gallery, I had a nest egg I never imagined possible. I bought a small cottage 3 blocks from Aunt Sylvia's place. It has big windows, a porch that smells like jasmine, and a guest room that is actually for guests, not for storage. I quit my job as a CFO. Well, sort of. I now work as a freelance financial consultant for artists and creatives. I help them manage their money so they don't get taken advantage of. It's fulfilling. It matters. And my photography. The service toured 3 cities. I'm working on a new collection now called Reclamation. It's about nature taking back abandoned spaces. It's full of color. As for the Vance family, Greg got custody of the kids. He moved to a modest apartment in the suburbs and is working as a paralegal. We text sometimes. He sends me pictures of Sophie and Liam. I started a college fund for them, one that Bella and my parents can't touch. Bella lives with Mom and Dad. They rented a 2-bedroom apartment in a less desirable part of Boston. It's a 4th-floor walk-up, just like I predicted. I unblocked Mom's number last week, just out of curiosity. There was one voicemail. I played it while sitting on my porch, watching the sun dip into the Pacific Ocean. Lillian, Mom's voice crackled. She sounded older. Tired. The arrogance was gone, replaced by a whining desperation. It's your birthday next week. We were thinking, if you wanted to come visit. Dad found a scratch on the car, and we can't afford the deductible. We miss you. Family is family, right? Call us. She didn't say happy birthday. She didn't say sorry. She just asked for money. I looked at the phone. I looked at the ocean. Family is family, I said to the empty air. But abuse is abuse. I deleted the voicemail. Then, I blocked the number again. Forever. I picked up my camera. The light was hitting the bougainvillea just right, turning the petals a brilliant, burning magenta. I snapped the photo. I captured the beauty. I captured the moment. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't waiting for someone else to tell me if the picture was good. I knew it was. Because I was the one holding the lens. This is my story. It's a story about losing everything you thought you needed to find everything you actually deserve. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being my witness. If you have watched this far, you are the true family I chose. Please go to the comments section and type the letter A. Type A to let me know you stuck with me until the end. Type A if you are a survivor. Type A if you are free. And remember, you hold the deed to your own life. Don't let anyone else live there rent-free. Goodbye for now.